I'm Andrew Harvey, and I'm sitting here in Charleston with my great friend and old conspirator, Linda Bender. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Linda. I've known Linda now for 10 years, and we've been very great friends because we share an enormous passion, a passion for animals, a passion for the welfare of animals. And we share a belief that one of the most terrible things that the human race is doing is its treatment of animals. We've created a worldwide Auschwitz in which we're torturing animals in animal experiments. We are destroying whole species, destroying habitats in an orgy of carelessness and dissociation from the sacredness of nature. Linda was one of the first people to come to the Institute of Sacred Activism. And one of the things that I've encouraged Linda to do over the years is to claim her sacred mission and to get out there and use her enormous abilities, her enormous charm, her great intellect, her great passion to wake people up to the dire situation we are in, but also to give people hope. One of the things that I'm happiest about is the creation of the Sacred Activism series that North Atlantic has done. And one of the best books in that series is a book that I had the honor of editing and of writing the afterword to, and it's Linda's book, Animal Wisdom. This is, to my mind, the best book written about the extraordinary animal wisdom that we all know animals have. The extraordinary capacities for love, for joy, for play, for deep irradiation of life with wisdom that animals have. And I just want to read you 3 of the things that have been said about this book. One is from Matthew Fox. This is an excellent book. It is substantive and non-sentimental, a good read, and a delightful one. The animals are grateful for this book. You will be too. This is Larry Dossey, who said, a compelling body of evidence suggests that human minds can connect with one another across space and time, but also with other sentient creatures as well. Dr. Linda Bender takes us inside these primordial connections and shows how they work toward our welfare and survival. And the last one is from a very great friend of both of ours, the great Aboriginal elder whom I love very deeply and had the honor to meet many times and make 2 films with, Bob Randall. There is one natural law for all of us to live by, and that is caring and sharing and being responsible for the well-being of all other living things. In Animal Wisdom, Linda Bender gives us all a chance to go back to the way that will maintain everything we have. She helps us remember what the animals have not forgotten, that we are all connected and no one being is less or greater than another. Bender explains what my people have always known, that having a good relationship with all life is the key to physical, mental, social, and spiritual harmony. This is the way it was meant to be. And this is the key to our survival. With those words of Bob Randall, I just want to turn to you and say thank you. Thank you for turning up. Thank you for pouring out your life to help the animals. Thank you for being such a passionate advocate. Thank you for exhausting yourself on many continents for this great, great cause that is so dear to my own heart. So let's begin our conversation, Linda, by really making clear to everybody out there just how dire the situation really is. And I want to talk to all of you directly. 2 weeks ago, and I'm speaking at the end of January in 2017, 2 weeks ago, the World Wildlife Fund let out a report in which it is said definitively that 2/3 of wildlife will be gone by 2020. That is 3 years from now. 2/3 of wildlife will be gone. It's almost unimaginable to begin to accept such a statistic. Such a statistic that shows us that 2/3 of the animals we love simply won't exist in 3 years. How does this make you feel, Linda?
It reminds me of an indigenous saying that when the creatures are gone from the earth, humankind will die of an extreme loneliness. But one thing I want to point out about that statistic is that we in America sometimes think that that involves wildlife in Africa or another country, another continent. But what it actually includes are the birds outside our homes, the little small mammals that we take for granted. All of these creatures will be gone because of human interaction, our mindless activities, and our belief that we have dominion over all these creatures, and that basically we do not need them.
I remember once I'd given a very fierce talk about animal rights, and this very charming seeming woman came up to me and said, "Oh, I loved your passion, but why do we need animals?"
Yes, yes.
I couldn't reply because at that moment a very unenlightened rage swept me and I wanted to put my hands around her throat and press. I said, "Madam, I just can't answer you at this moment." But can you imagine someone saying, "Why do we need animals?"
Yes. Well, I do actually hear things like that. Or I also hear, and I think this is a very important fact that we all must consider. The American Veterinary Association a few years ago did a survey that said over 62% or more, 65% of Americans who have companion animals in their homes consider them a family member. So we love our dogs and cats. We care somewhat about the birds, the wildlife in our neighborhood. But we are in a bubble. We are excluding the other creatures that we share this planet with. We need to wake up, expand our home, expand what we understand as our family. Let's use the word family, okay? So if we consider our dogs and our cats family, we need to now realize that our family is all of nature, all of the environment. And that frankly, we can no longer say, my home is safe, I'm taken care of, my animals are taken care of. That's another country, or that's another ecosystem. What is going on with the wildlife in Africa, what is going on around the world will find its way to your doorstep. And when they are no longer here, we will be gone as well. We are simply at the end of the line. Why? Because everything we require in our lives revolves Mother Nature. And if we destroy Mother Nature, we are destroying ourselves.
One of the things that they tell us about serial killers is that very often they start by practicing cruelty on animals and then graduate to people. And I think that there's a horrible similarity between that and what we are doing to the animals. We are killing innumerable species, treating them abominably, and that seems to protect us or in some ways guarantee our survival. That's how people think sometimes.
Yes.
In fact, it makes sure that we create such a dissociated state of loneliness, such a radical dissociation from nature, that we go on with our bottom line fundamentalism, our exploitation of nature, which will in the end kill us. So when people say to you, why, when there's so much human suffering, do you give your life to protecting animals? What do you say to them?
I get this a lot, or I hear from people who are very passionate about abortion rights and the preservation of, human causes. Well, I usually say, this is your passion. If you care about life, this is your gift. This is your reason to be a force in the world. My entire life, I have had a very special and sacred relationship with animals. That is my passion. But what I ask people to remember is that my particular passion in my work is the protection, the healing, and the caring of animals and their habitats. This does not mean that I do not care about human life. There is enough love to go around. I serve animals, but in that vein I also serve humanity.
Of course.
So I do not see an issue with focusing on my love and passion for animals with a love and passion for all life, all humanity, all beings. It's all
what I've
sacred.
said all over the world, and you know this,
Yes.
is when people come up to me and say, what should I do? When people start to wake up that we're in an unspeakable crisis which threatens the life of humanity, and ask me, what should I do? What I always say to them is, follow your heartbreak. Get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, surround yourself with the protection of the divine, and ask yourself one question. What is the cause in the world that truly breaks your heart? And then do something about that. Because you know, and I know you so well now, your heartbreak is animals. It always has been. You've always been deeply disturbed by the way in which we treat animals, because you've always known how amazing their powers are and how deeply sacred they are. You have turned up to follow your heartbreak.
That's right.
And you've turned up to pour yourself out to serve those who you love so much. So your serving animals is modeling how other people can serve their cause that they feel heartbroken about.
And often people say, you're doing great work and I love your work. I'm not sure what I can do. And I say, even if you don't know specifically, if you turn up authentically in your heart, in your prayers, the right people, the right situation, something will turn up. A lunch date, a chance meeting with someone that isn't really chance. You will be shown the way. And it's also a journey. And I'd like to say that when I was a young child, I was always connected to animals. I never knew a time before, because I've been asked, what created this in your life? I could not remember a time before. And
you were a lonely child, weren't you?
I was a lonely child.
And animals were really your connection to life itself.
Yes, I was this skinny little twerp, and I would go out and the birds would come and sing, and they very naturally included me in their world and said, you are beautiful, you are beautiful. Animals know we are beautiful as we are. And so I developed this great love with them, knowing that there really is no separation between any of us. But as that work developed, I, became a veterinarian. And I was afraid to do that because I was afraid of the downside and the sad part of that. But I turned up anyway. But I always believed that my work was only with the animals, that my relationship, my passion, my work was to only help the animals. And it was only as I was on this journey that I learned that it had to grow and it had to change and it's a circuitous route that it takes winds and bends. And I was very strongly moved by the buffalo in Africa when they said,
oh, tell this story. This
Yes.
is so. But let's go slowly,
Yes.
because there's things we need to unpack.
Yes.
First of all, your childhood introduced you to this visceral love of animals that you have. And then you made the decision to become a veterinarian.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the unique strengths that you bring to your animal advocacy
Yes.
is your scientific background.
Oh,
you
absolutely.
are deeply and fundamentally trained scientifically. So you bring a whole
Yes.
range of gifts that many
Yes.
animal
Yes.
advocates don't have.
Yes.
So speak about your veterinarian work, and then speak about the work that you've done all over the world before you became a writer and an animal advocate to help people wake up and to work with endangered species. And tell that story that really changed your life of the macaws and that's an extraordinary story.
Well, and this is what I mean when it's a journey. It doesn't all happen at once.
No.
And so I was spiritually, if you want to call it that, connected in the cosmic consciousness. You know, these are just words.
Right.
And when I was a child, I had no words. There was no word meditation, higher consciousness, none of this.
But you were naturally awake.
It just was. And this is how animals are. We don't have to assign agendas. We
Right.
don't have to stand on
They're
our
not
head and
Hindus
do
or Buddhists or
yoga
Christians, they're
positions.
awake. Yes.
It just is.
Yes.
And so I was invited into that. So that was my natural state. And so when I became scientifically trained, became a scientist, one thing I never struggled with is this argument between that sacred spiritual connection with all life and the scientific. To me, it blended very naturally, okay? Because we are in these bodies, you know? That's the science, the time, space, realm, the three-dimensional. We are here, but we are also connected to the oneness of all life. Call it whatever you want.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, based in science, I continued on my work because my work was to physically help animals, to rescue them, to care for them, to protect their environments. And that has given me probably the greatest joy in my life. And I've rescued many animals, saved many, and lost many. And I was fortunate enough to be immersed in the wildlife community and spent many years, and still do, in Africa, helping animals who've been rescued from the wild animal trafficking trade. And so I have been on a journey that has opened me to my perspectives on conservation.
And you were very tormented by what you discovered in the trafficking trade, weren't you? It was terrible.
Many
initiation.
times, many times. And there was an underlying fear within me that at some point I would be confronted with the fact that my greatest passion and my greatest love was a weakness and would show up as a weakness.
Why would you think it was a weakness?
It was an underlying, because I was afraid of how broken I could become.
I think that's what terrifies all sacred activists. Everyone is frightened that if they truly open to what's going on, they will be so shattered by it that they won't be able to continue.
Exactly.
But that, as you discovered, is a fiction. It's our brokenness that actually is our doorway into true strength.
Yes, and I was confronted with that exact scene. On many levels, subtly, yes, I always faced that fear. Can I take this? Can I take this? And I did. But I tell the story in my book of a particular incident when I've always been so passionate and connected to birds. And the blue hyacinths, which are the largest parrot, beautiful, shy, radiant birds, the birds you want to see in a photo, but really not in person because they deserve to be in the wild in their habitats. And I was called one early morning to get to the clinic quickly. There was
Where
a
was
shipment.
the clinic?
This was in Southeast Asia, yes. And I was on call, and they said, quickly get there. There was a shipment of birds that were attempted smuggled, and they're coming to the clinic. It's all I knew. And so there I was, driving quickly, figuring out what supplies I had, etc., etc. Raced to the clinic, parked the car, jumped out, and it was an open-air clinic, more like a MASH unit than a modern hospital. Dashed in, and there was complete silence. And I thought, oh my God. And I looked. I didn't see the birds. And I looked through the other door, walked outside, and there the helpers had gathered, and there on the ground, lined up like soldiers, were these extraordinarily beautiful dead hyacinth macaws. I fell to the ground, and that was the moment that I'd feared in my life. Up to that
Heartbreak
point,
axed you.
I fell to my knees, and it took me a long time even to just physically get up. I said, I can't take this anymore. I do not want to live in a world where this cruelty exists. I cannot take it. My heart is broken. And it took a long time. But I did get up, and it's when I began my deepest practice of meditation. Because when I would sit in meditation, contemplating what I would do, because I felt no longer capable of helping animals or anything else.
You were so shattered.
So shattered. I felt completely ineffective. And time went by, and I began to experience, shall I go on with this story? I began to experience a tiny light that would come to me during the darkness of my meditations. I wasn't praying either. And slowly, over the course of weeks, that light became slightly brighter, bigger, brighter, bigger. And I realized that light was an invitation for whatever was good, whatever was spirit, whatever was consciousness and love in this world was that light. And that light was asking me to share my pain. And to transform that pain into a force field of love and light that could conquer anything, could strengthen me, could allow me to look at the darkness, not be shattered by it, but to see through it, and to be the light that shines on that darkness. And I decided that giving up my work was simply not an option.
Absolutely.
It was not an option. But I was strengthened in a way through that experience that I never, ever thought that I would be capable of handling. And that is what I teach the people that I encounter.
That's what really drew you to Sacred Activism, isn't it? Because in Sacred Activism, I think you found the fusion that you're looking for, the fusion between deep spiritual practice and radical action.
Yes.
The truth is, in this terrifying crisis that we're in, there is absolutely no way that you and I will be able to do the work that we're called to do without making it spiritual practice our fundamental
Yes.
priority, because it's from practice
Yes.
that we get the peace, the proper detachment, the clarity,
Yes.
the passion, the stamina
Yes.
to go on, going on, even in the face of very great defeats. And you and I have had constant and great defeats. And we know the
Yes.
truth of this, because we wouldn't be sitting here as passionate, in fact, more passionate about the work that we're doing,
Than
had we
ever.
not meant prayer and meditation
Yes.
the core of our
Yes,
lives.
yes. And I learned that as I look at the world, and I have been talking about the situation with wildlife for more years than I want to think about. And so the message really has not changed. It has just become more intense. And people say, well, it's too late. It's midnight. And I say, it's not midnight yet. It may be 11 o'clock. It is not midnight. And what is so important that people understand is that in this sea of catastrophic events that we see happening, really the only people I know that have hope are the people who are serving. And I think the most important thing that we can do now is to stand up and serve. It is truly the only response to a world in chaos. And I say to people, show up.
Absolutely.
Show up in all your authentic brokenness, not good enoughness, and you will be helped. You will be guided. And it's prayer, and sometimes the prayer is just, I'm here. I am here. Show me the way. And that is still my best prayer.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things you and I have talked about, because we've had many profound discussions about just this, is how important it is for people to realize that courage is not being afraid.
Yes. Yes.
Courage is not being afraid of being afraid, and
That's
realizing that when you are afraid, you have in, and I call God the beloved, you have in the beloved a being who will give you the strength to go on despite your fear.
Yes.
I know you
So
well, so
important.
I know your fragility and your vulnerability and your heartbreak don't go away. In fact, in some ways they deepen. But I also know that you now know that in the beloved you have a constant sustainer and helper who will give you the strength to catch planes in the middle of the night, to go wherever you're called, to speak to all kinds of
That's right.
people, sometimes hostile audiences. I've seen you deal with very difficult audiences who want to put your work down. You're gracious, you're persistent, you're never nasty, but you're very, very strong about what you feel. And I've watched you, and this has been one of the great joys of my life. I've watched you go from someone who was genuinely shy and really self-doubting
Yes.
to someone who has written a major book and has become a major advocate and sacred activist on behalf of animals. And I'm so proud of you. And proud of you, especially because you are fragile and vulnerable. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this interview, so that people who feel like you, feel that it's overwhelming, feel overwhelmed by what's happening, can see in you someone who is overwhelmed, but who doesn't allow that to stop you
Yes.
going on.
I often am overwhelmed, and that's okay.
Yes.
And as one of my great
I'm
heroines,
overwhelmed all the time. I just
Yes.
have got used to it.
Yes, right.
And I stay in the overwhelmed
Yes,
state,
yes.
and I continue
Yes.
to do what I have to do.
Yes.
And want to do and love to do.
That's right. And
Yes.
every day I wake up afraid, and every day I pray, and I show up. And as one of my great heroines, Marie Colvin, said, as you mentioned, courage is just not being afraid to be afraid. And I say, okay, I'm afraid. Good morning, fear. Let's get going. And I really believe that is all we need. We need the courage to stand up. Yes, we're overwhelmed, but as long as we have that personal practice, the overwhelm, this is what I feel every day when I leave my door, the overwhelm that is most in me is the overwhelm of love.
Yes. Yes.
That is my biggest overwhelm.
Yes.
And that's why when people say, why do you care about this? Because we should care about that instead of that, or care about this instead of that.
But you
And
do
I
care
say,
about all of those
I
things.
care about it all.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But you do have to choose.
You have
The most
to
important
choose.
people,
Yes.
the thing that people should get, I think, is that, look, there are many, many causes that we're all concerned about. But what is the cause that truly you are called
Yes.
to? And that's why I say
That's
follow
right.
your heartbreak.
Yes, that's
Because
right.
if you follow your heartbreak, you'll discover your love.
Yes.
The overwhelming love in you
Yes.
that is for life.
Yes.
And when you follow that and
Yeah.
dedicate yourself to the one cause that you can really put your whole being behind, then you are turning up in a great loving army of midwife warriors.
Yes.
So if you pay deep attention to animals, and I of course do that too, but also, and if someone pays attention to old people, and another person pays attention to those dying of AIDS, and another pays attention to the poor, we are all working in the same work together, following our heartbreak, discovering our passion, and putting our overwhelmedness into action through overwhelming love.
Right.
That's
right.
sacred activism.
That's right. And this is what I see with the people I workshop and
Yes.
the lectures, is everyone has that special gift,
Absolutely.
that special talent. And I say, get it out there, baby. And they are.
Especially in a time like this, there's no more time to waste.
No.
Trump has given us a great gift by really representing the shadow in its most aggressive form. We now know that the world hangs on a thread. Everybody a lot of people have been in a complete coma about the seriousness of the environmental situation, of the seriousness of the situation with animals, the seriousness of the situation with the poor, with the environment. It's now obvious to even those who've been so asleep that the world is in tremendous danger. So let's take this chance to become real, to become authentic, to come together, to do the serious inner practice that connects us with the joy and strength of the beloved, and let's go forward. We will go forward trembling, we will go forward afraid, we will be vulnerable, but if we stay with each other and sustain and encourage each other like you and I have done, like you encourage so many animal advocates, like I try to encourage all the sacred activists in the world, if we encourage each other, there is still nothing that we cannot achieve. And it may be that the situation had to become so monstrous to wake us up, to finally initiate us into what we can do when we are truly inflamed with love, grounded in practice, and choosing a cause to dedicate our energies to.
Yes.
It's not rocket science.
No.
But it's amazing how difficult it is
Yes.
for people to get to it.
Yeah.
It's been a constant source of real pain to me because I've been doing this work now for 20 years, but actually I feel that now is the time where all the work that you and I and so many other people have been doing in the dark and so lonely for so long is really bearing fruition.
It is.
Because wherever I go, I meet people who are famished for sacred activism, famished for a purpose and practice.
Right. Yes, and I encourage people to go deep and allow that passion that they feel. Everyone feels the passion.
Yes.
The fear is in how they release it, how they express it. I'm not good enough, it's too overwhelming. One thing
people won't like me.
Or
one of the
people won't
things
like
that
me.
you and I
Yes.
have talked about a lot is that you're a very elegant woman, you've had a sophisticated life, you've been part of a sophisticated world, and you had to give up a lot of that world to claim your passion, because passion makes you lonely.
It does.
Until it brings you the friends that you really, that the God will provide you. But you have to be brave enough not to be liked.
That's right.
You have to be brave enough to stand up for what you believe and be embarrassing.
Yes.
And offend all the right people. Something I've been quite good at, actually, in my own way.
Yes, and I find that of late, with the political situation the way it is, some people, like on my Facebook, I have great conversations on my Facebook.
Yes.
And I am a scientist. I talk about science. I talk about what we're doing to the environment. These are important issues for our
Yes.
survival, as we spoke of. I get messages from people who say, I knew that you were this liberal, or you were this, or you were that. I thought this was great, all your wonderful photos and love of animals. And, well, I just cannot follow you anymore. And I cannot answer everyone, good or not so good. But there was one woman who I did write back, and I said, you know, I have been caring for animals and the environment since I was born. I came into this world doing it. And I find it odd that people now give this labels.
Yeah.
That it is in some way a political party or a liberal or a conservative thing. Actually,
It's
one
such
of the
rubbish,
great,
isn't it? I mean, because
Yes.
do you care about life or not? Do you
Yes.
care about the continuation of life or not?
Or
do you
not.
care that there will be no world if we do not pay attention,
Yes, yes,
deep attention,
yes,
urgent attention right
yes,
now?
yes.
Do you want your children
Yes.
to live and breathe?
Yes.
Do you want them to inherit an
Yes.
earth that is beautiful?
Yes, yes, yes. And I
It has
said
nothing
that
to do with politics.
the one conversation, I believe, the most important conversation we should be having now, today, in this world, is about our relationship with Mother Nature and the earth. Because
Oh.
without it, we are gone. It didn't come up in the political dialogues. That is my take
That's
on
so
it.
shocking.
So whether you're Republican, Democrat, call me whatever you want to call me. I am showing up
For life.
for life.
Right.
And give me whatever name you will. But that is the message, that now is the time to take this very seriously. And that if the elephants in Africa are wiped out from the wild, the giraffes, now the lions, all of the above, it will, as I said earlier, find our way to every doorstep in this country.
Yes.
When we've wiped everything
The
out.
collapse of the environment will kill us. This is a question of survival.
It is.
If we
It really is.
don't love life and put that
Yes.
love into
Yes.
protection
Yes.
of the environment, we are ensuring our own demise. It is as simple as that. Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a communist or a lesbian acrobat, that is the bottom line
Yes.
for the whole planet.
Yes, it's true.
But let's take a step back now, and I want to ask you about this book, because this is a book I love and have read several
you.
times in different versions.
Yes.
What would you say is the central message of this book, Animal Wisdom, Learning from the Spiritual Lives of Animals? Very provocative title, and I loved you putting that in the title, because, as you know, I am very crazy about my cats. I'm a catomane, and one of the things that I've discovered is the spiritual depth of the cats that I've been privileged to spend a large part of my life with. They've been my mystical teachers, my teachers in meditation. They've taught me the depths of unconditional love, and with them I feel at my deepest and most loving. So they bring out in me
Yes.
what I would call the animal divine,
Yes.
and help me connect in ways that I wasn't connected
Yes.
to my body, to the beauty of nature, to the holiness of what's possible in relationships with nature.
Perfect. And I love that you said that animals help connect you back into your body,
Yes.
because that is one of the things that we have lost. You know, humans are the only species that has chosen to secede from nature. And what I learned from the birds, all the wildlife when I was a tiny little girl, is that I am not separate from them. I am not separate from the trees, the birds, the sun, the moon, the stars, the grass.
Absolutely.
And everything is alive. We are all in a sacred chord. We are connected.
Everything is created out of divine consciousness.
So we, in our humanness, in our contemporary culture, have decided that we're separate. and our religions have said we have dominion over the rest of the world, that we, for some strange, inexplicable reason, are awake and conscious, the rest of the world is not.
This
I mean,
is
when I
such
was a young
nonsense.
girl, people used to routinely come up to me and say, why do you care about those dumb animals? They don't think, they have no feelings. I mean, we've come a long way,
Well,
actually.
Descartes said that animals are machines.
Yes.
And scientists still deny soul and emotion and in two
Yes,
animals,
right,
which
right.
gives them justification to
Right.
do these horrific experiments on
Right.
them.
And-
You and I know, and everybody who loves animal knows, that this is absolute
Yes,
nonsense.
yes.
Not only are animals conscious, they're often far more conscious, far
right,
more
that's
sensitive
right.
than we are.
That's right.
And we have a great deal to learn from them.
yeah.
And one of the tragedies of the religions has been that it is they privileged human consciousness as being the only enlightened consciousness. What about the whales that can communicate
Yes.
across impossible
Yes.
distances? What about the powers of telepathy of dolphins?
Yes.
What about the extraordinary intelligence and sensitivity of octopi? There's a book
Yes.
just been written about octopuses which show
Yes.
that they are unbelievably prescient.
Yes.
We
Species
are
specific
mad.
genius. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And when we choose to listen and tune in, there is such brilliance in the natural world that we have simply divided ourselves from.
And brilliance that we need. Because one of the tragedies of our dissociation from animals is that we have become dissociated from their wisdom. That's why you called the book Animal Wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things the shamanic cultures know, and this is why you and I both believe that the indigenous cultures are the foundation for our survival.
Yes.
Without their
Yes.
knowledge, we're simply
Yes.
not going to get
Yes.
through.
Yes.
One of the things they know is that without learning from the wisdom, the strength, the passion, the deep sacred intelligence of animals, human beings are lost in the world.
Yes, and we are. We are walking around almost as if we're in a coma. And if you pay attention to animals, particularly in the wild, but our dogs and cats teach the same lesson.
Yes.
That we need to ground ourselves back into our bodies. And there's a fascinating thing that animals do in the wild, in a prey-predator relationship, and I see it. You know, I've spent a long time boots on the ground with wildlife. And if an animal is hunted, say there's an antelope, and it's preyed on by the lions or whatever, and that animal escapes, there are choices. They'll drop down, play dead. They'll run, fight for their life. If they survive, they do this amazing thing. We could learn from this. In order to get rid of that fight or flight stress, they shake. They physically shake stress out of their bodies. What have we done? And it works.
Yes, it does. I remember you teaching me this. I've
Yeah.
done it a lot.
Shakes.
Yes.
And
I shake continually.
and it's such a simple thing.
Yes.
But if we did more of that, perhaps we would have fewer bills with the, analysts who
but also-
keep us mired in the stress. We need to relieve the stress, get into our bodies, ground ourselves. Animals teach us to do that.
And animals teach us also to revel in being. When I am overworked and taking myself too seriously, thank God I'm rescued by my cat.
Yes.
Who is simply lying in the sun, reveling in her cathood.
Yes.
And what that over time has taught me is that unless I am spending real time every day just being, all my doing will be perverted by anxiety. It won't
Absolutely.
flow from the core of myself.
Absolutely. And when the dog brings the toy over and says, enough, let's play.
Yes.
Let's walk. Let's move. Let's be in
This
the
is
present
one of the most
moment.
beautiful sections of your book when you talk
Yeah.
about how animals teach human beings how to play.
Yeah.
And that play is something we've almost totally forgotten how to do.
I know.
Which makes our
Yeah.
lives so harried
Yes, and people say to me, well, this or that with the animal. I said, if it's not about fun and joy, it's not animal. They understand the joy of aliveness, of simply being alive and awake. And I ask people who are struggling, I said, when was the last time you walked outside and really listened for the sound of a bird singing, or just took a deep breath and looked up at the sky? In that moment, and think of nothing else but the beauty of being alive, the joy and the grace of simply being on this planet, alive in this moment, breathing.
Isn't it amazing the work that's being done with animals? For example, animals are taken to hospitals. There are places, there are cancer hospices where cats and dogs are taken, and the amount of joy that they bring, sometimes even healing that they bring.
Oh, yes.
And there are these programs in prisons where very, very hardened criminals are transformed by educating and training dogs. I've seen one of them, and it really just reduced me to tears. I think they were a group of lifers, and they were given the responsibility of training dogs for the blind. And when you see the love that these men, these tough men, have for their animals, and the love that these animals have awakened in them, it really shows you the extraordinary holy power that animals have to not only show us unconditional love, but to awaken the deepest powers of love
and
in
experience.
Us. And experience it.
Because it becomes not a theory, it becomes an experience.
Exactly.
And this is very, very successful in prison, in the prison situation with women.
Really?
You know, most women who are imprisoned are not in prison because they're bad people. Most women are in jail because they've made really dumb mistakes.
Right.
And they...
Which any of us could have done.
Exactly.
And have, but not being caught.
Not caught. The mischief. But they, when they connect with these pups, and they're trained again for the same things, you know, get these animals out, they attach to these animals in a way that gives their lives a whole new meaning. And they truly are transformed. They truly are transformed in ways. And an interview with one woman said to me once, she said, "This is love. I now know love." And it made me cry, because she said, for the first time in my life, I have experienced this bond of life. First time in her life. This is a grown woman.
One of the things we've been talking about in these last days is how animals can also initiate us spiritually from other realms.
Completely.
And I know that you have,
Completely.
and I certainly have stories of animals who have died, who have come back to us to reveal all kinds of secrets.
Totally.
Would you share one with us?
Oh, I'd love to. This is part of, I have a database on my website, and I share it, this the only database like it in the world, with Rupert Sheldrake. And I was putting these stories together not too long ago, and I realized that these, quote, unexplained powers of animal stories that regular people from all walks of life, from all over the world, have sent in to me, so many are about experiences of animals having crossed over after dying and giving messages, showing up. Extraordinary percentage of these stories are those
reincarnation stories, basically.
Reincarnation stories. One I was sharing with you earlier was about a woman. It was great. She had a beloved cat, and it was old, and the cat died of natural causes, and she just, from time to time, the cat would show up in her kitchen or in the bedroom, just flashes of this cat. And she was describing this situation to a good friend of hers.
Who was a policewoman. She was a policewoman.
Who was a policewoman.
I love this story.
She was a New York City cop.
Yes.
This is a tough lady.
One tough lady, yes.
And the friend said, "Oh, come on, you are making this up. This is nonsense. Sorry, I'm not going to go there with you.
Yes.
I like your cat, but it's done. It's over." And so one day they were in the she was in the kitchen, and her cop friend came to the back door, walked in, and she got about 10 feet inside the door and suddenly tripped. And the friend said, "What's wrong? What happened?" She said, "Oh my God, your cat just crossed in front of me." True story.
Of course. When I was writing The Direct Path, which was my book about how we all have a direct connection with the divine, and many of the religions have tried to wipe this away in terms of their own power, I was worried that I was being too radical, quite honestly, and I was scared.
You?
Yeah, and me, yes. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I prayed to the mother to give me a sign that I was on the right path. Being myself, I thought it would be a very dramatic sign, there'd be lightning saying, "Yes, you are right," or something like that. But I walked out of my study and my beloved cat, Purboil, was there radiating divine light. She was there, and I saw her as I imagine the beloved sees her. She was absolutely radiant with this diamond white light and looking up at me, and her eyes were streaming white light. And I realized, of course, it would be a cat that would give me the message. It would be a message from the heart of this direct connection of love in the core of nature. And that was why I went ahead and wrote that book, which was a kind of revolutionary book, saying, don't get stuck in the religion's attitude to you. Claim your direct connection and live it. From the core of yourself and express it in sacred act. And it was a cat that brought me that message. My cat, my beloved cat.
Even, the sacred, the gods come in my life experience.
Absolutely.
In through the back door.
Yes.
They don't come marching in with flags and gold and diamonds parading through the front door. They come in humbly and subtly in ways.
Well, look what you said to me about your father and his connection with blue jays, and how last night you were thinking about your father. You came in, and for some completely inexplicable reason, there was a blue jay feather on your floor.
It was.
Right.
And I immediately went to my, my science brain and said, "Oh, well, come on. That was the feather that fell out of my wallet that I keep always with me." And I thought, okay, I'm sure it was. So I picked up the little feather. Thought, well, that's odd. I really didn't have my wallet in here. I wonder how it fell out here. Well, I'm packing to go on a trip. So I opened my wallet and the feather was there. I have no explanation, but there is a beautiful blue jay feather that was on my floor.
And in all the shamanic traditions, you have innumerable stories in which at crucial moments of danger, it is an animal, a bird or an owl or a little mouse, that gives you the priceless instruction that you need to transform yourself or to find a way out of an impossible situation. So one of the things that your work and my work in this passion for animals is trying to awaken humanity to are these kinds of saving help and wisdom that can really help us, even in the very painful and difficult situation that we find ourselves in.
Yes, and the animals, I just came back from this marvelous trip to East Africa, and I spent a lot of time on the Serengeti Plains, and I was with the elephants at Save the Elephants, sacred elephants. And the thing that I find so extraordinary about being with animals is that they live in a consciousness that is more connected.
They're always
than
connected.
We are. They are always connected. And when we pay attention, they know we're paying attention to them.
Completely.
And they are so amazingly gracious and happy and extraordinarily joyous that we meet them on that level. And they allow us to expand our consciousness.
Completely.
And to be around the elephants is they read your heart. To be around an elephant, they read your heart, and they have so much to teach us about love, about relationship, about strength and courage, because the suffering that they are going through now and how they respond is such a deep teaching for us, because they are connected.
And isn't it your experience, and as it has been mine, that when you spend time, as I have with the white lions and with elephants in South Africa and all over the world, what astounds me is the patient, unconditional love of the animals, that they still have this love for us. They're still willing to love us unconditionally after all that we've done to them.
Yes.
Despite everything that we've made them suffer,
Yes.
it's still available to us.
It is.
So that's why your work and your advocacy are so important, because time is running out for the human race. And one of the ways in which we're expressing our dissociation most tragically is in our treatment of animals. And this is especially tragic because so much of the help that we are going to need to be able to survive will come to us from animals, from the consciousness of animals, from the subtle hints that animals can give us, from the help in dangerous situations that animals can offer us. And when you know the truth of this relationship, you can't help wanting to say to everybody, please wake up to this. Make yourself available to this. It will transform your vision of where you are, of who you are, of the glory of the world, and of what you are here to live. This overwhelming set of sacred relationships with the whole of life. That's why we're here. We're here to experience love in all of its amazing forms.
Yes.
And you, Linda, have experienced that and give us tremendous help in finding our way back, finding our way home, at a moment when, if we don't, we really will destroy our home. So thank you. And I know that you have a message that you really would love to read to us, and I think it would be a wonderful thing to conclude our conversation with reading this out to people, so that all of those who are listening, and thank you for being with us, can hear the essence of what you have to say.
And I'd like to just say that there are so many things that people can do to get involved. And I don't mean that you have to go out and start a new animal rescue. There's so much to be done, and particularly now with the political situation, it's imperative that we gather, we consolidate, we work together to put the message out, to call Congress, to call our senators, to get involved with anything local that we can. Start programs that help wildlife on your own streets. Dedicate your time, dedicate your money locally, and speak out. And I say, this is not a time to be quiet. It's not a time to make friends with on a level that keeps us closed. It's time to reach out to people on the other side, find a conversation, and work for the benefit of all of us. Yeah.
And as you know, one of the things that I'm doing is supporting my great friend and who is my executive director, Jill Angelo's project of Moondog Farm. Jill has decided to buy a small farm and to make it an asylum for wounded and broken animals. And I'm supporting her wholeheartedly in what I call the St. Francis Sanctuary Project, because what I envisage is that Moondog Farm will become a model which will encourage all kinds of ordinary, extraordinary people with limited means to bring animals into the core of their home and really make your love real.
I have a woman who loves cats, and she's broken by all the feral animals. And what she did, she came up with a wonderful idea, because she understands that people letting their cats out in the day and the feral animals, the feral cats, are decimating the birds and the small mammals. And so she came up with a scheme where she would capture the feral cats
Difficult
would
job.
spay and neuter them. And instead of just then releasing them again out to hunt the poor critters, she created a space where they could live in freedom, but they were enclosed, so they still had a good life. They were protected indoors, yet they had space outside. So there's so many creative ways that people can work in their own communities.
Absolutely.
And do the good work. And one thing I also want to say, sometimes people, well, so many people, because I am a scientist and I care about food and what we eat and what we've done in our slaughterhouses, et cetera, topic for another discussion. But I say to people, if there's one thing that you could do is stop eating meat for the benefit of the planet and for the benefit of your bodies. Because when you are eating the flesh of animals that have been, whose bodies have been polluted with antibiotics, hormones, and
who've been killed in frightening ways, so the fear is stored.
Tragic, horrific circumstances, and those stress hormones are raging in the body. When you eat that animal, all of that becomes part of your body. And this is not my opinion, this is simply physiology. And so that's adding to the stress and the fear that we already have. So there's so many things we all can do.
Absolutely.
To make a difference. Andrew.
And read your message, my darling. Read it, because it's such a beautiful
well,
message.
I just...
it is a really powerful message. You read it to me this morning, and I'd love people to hear it.
In 10 years from now, the question you will be asked is not whether you voted Democratic or Republican, or whether you voted or not. What you will be asked is, what did you do when billionaires and politicians concerned only with money, power, and greed passed laws that allowed our water to be polluted, our air unfit to breathe, and our food so riddled with toxins that our immune systems are tremendously weakened so our bodies can no longer fight off disease. Cancer is at an all-time high. You will be asked, what did you do when wildlife and their habitats, entire ecosystems, are being wiped out by a tsunami of destruction to benefit a few greedy billionaires and the corporations they run? You'll be asked what you stood for. Did you speak out and fight for clean water, for clean air to breathe, for the natural world and the non-human beings that share this beautiful earth with us? Did you fight to protect Mother Earth for your children and the generations to come? For without a healthy earth, none of us can survive. Every single thing that allows us to live comes from Mother Earth. Without that healthy earth, we will all be gone. What will you say to your children and your grandchildren? Teddy Roosevelt, who was one of our great, great advocates of nature, a Republican president, who was responsible for the creation of our national parks, said we in this country have been blessed by such natural beauty that it is our service to protect all that we have been given. So I ask you right now, today, to put your own unique gifts and talents to work. Do the right thing, not only for yourself and your family, but for the generations to come. Remember, previous generations of ordinary people fought hard for the rights that we have today. Stand up, speak the voice in your heart, make a lot of noise, and don't be afraid to be afraid. It won't be easy. Not everyone will like you. But so what? You will be supported and inspired by those who share your vision. My Father's words ring in my ear right now. Although it may be difficult and it may seem daunting, remember that doing the right thing really does matter. And this is how we make the world a better place for all. Thank you, Andrew. And thank you all, the beautiful animals that we are graced with every day. May they survive. Thank you.